You're sitting at a sidewalk cafe in Vienna pretending to read a newspaper, but your eyes aren't on the headlines. Across the square, a man in a gray coat adjusts his scarf. That's the signal. In 90 seconds, he'll drop a USB drive into a flower pot near the fountain, and you'll retrieve it without breaking stride. On that drive are the technical specifications of a foreign nation's long-range missile guidance system. No one around you has any idea. To the world, you're a mid-level trade attaché enjoying an espresso. But you are something else entirely. This is your life as every rank of a covert CIA officer. This video is a dramatization for entertainment and educational purposes. The details presented are based on publicly available information, declassified materials, and credible reporting on the CIA's clandestine service. Specific operational methods and classified procedures are not disclosed here. The Central Intelligence Agency's clandestine service, formerly known as the Directorate of Operations, is responsible for the collection of foreign intelligence through human sources around the world. These are the men and women who recruit spies, run covert operations, and operate under assumed identities in some of the most dangerous places on Earth. Today, we're walking through every rank in this shadow career, from your first day as a trainee to the moment you oversee America's entire espionage apparatus. Let's begin. It starts with a phone call you almost didn't answer. After months of applications, background checks, a polygraph that lasted 4 hours, and interviews that felt more like interrogations, you're told to report to a facility in Virginia. No specific address, just coordinates and a date. You've been accepted into the clandestine service trainee program, what insiders simply call the farm. For the next several months, everything you thought you knew about intelligence work gets dismantled and rebuilt. You learn surveillance detection routes, how to know if you're being followed, and how to lose a tail through a crowded city without ever looking like you're trying. You learn how to assess a stranger in a foreign bar and determine within minutes whether they have access to information your country needs. You practice dead drops, brush passes, covert communication methods. You build cover identities from scratch, memorizing fabricated life histories so deeply that they feel more real than your own. And the psychological pressure is relentless. Instructors deliberately push you into scenarios designed to induce panic, exhaustion, and doubt. They want to see who holds their cover story at 3 in the morning after being detained in a simulated hostile interrogation. Most of your class started with confidence. Not all of them finish, but you do. You graduate from the farm not as a spy, not yet, but as someone the agency believes might become one. You survived the farm, but nobody's handing you a plane ticket just yet. Your first assignment is at CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, working as a staff operations officer. And honestly, it's humbling. You spend your days inside a windowless office reading cable traffic, encrypted reports flowing in from stations around the world. You learn the internal language. You learn how the bureaucracy moves. You draft operational proposals that your superiors will tear apart and send back with red ink. It's tedious. But here's what most people don't understand. This phase is where you learn how the machine actually works. You start to see the patterns. A case officer in Jakarta sends a cable about a potential recruit inside a foreign ministry. A station in Europe flags unusual movement by a known intelligence operative. An analyst downstairs is requesting confirmation on a piece of signals intelligence that contradicts what a human source reported last week. Your job is to connect these threads, to support the officers in the field by making sure they have what they need. You sit in on operational reviews. You watch senior officers debate whether a potential asset is genuine or a dangle, a plant sent by a foreign intelligence service to feed disinformation. And slowly, you begin to develop what the agency values above almost everything else: operational judgment. The ability to read a situation, weigh the risks, and make a call when the information is incomplete. After roughly 2 years at headquarters, your name goes on a list. You're being considered for your first overseas posting. Everything is about to change. You step off a commercial flight in Amman, Jordan, carrying a suitcase and a name that isn't yours. Officially, you're a political officer at the U.S. Embassy. You attend diplomatic functions. You file routine reports. But that's your cover. Your real job, the one that doesn't appear on any org chart, is to recruit and handle foreign intelligence assets. You are now a case officer, and this is the core of what the CIA's clandestine service does. Your day's rate on 2 levels. In the light, you attend meetings at the embassy, maintain your diplomatic cover, and perform just enough official work to stay credible. In the shadows, you're running agents. There's a mid-level official in a neighboring country's intelligence service. Let's call him Tariq. who has access to information about regional threat networks. Your job is to develop a relationship with him, not through coercion, through trust. You meet him at restaurants. You learn about his family, his frustrations, his ambitions. Over weeks and months, you assess his motivations. Is it money, ideology, ego, compromise? Every asset is different. And then comes the moment, the pitch. You ask Tariq, carefully and deliberately, to provide classified information to the United States. Your heart is pounding. If he says no and reports the approach, your cover is blown. The embassy will quietly send you home. Your career might be over before it truly started, but he doesn't say no, he says yes, and now you're responsible for his life. Because if his own government discovers what he's doing, the consequences for Tariq won't be a reassignment, they'll be far worse. You run this asset for months, conducting meetings in safe houses, varying your routes, watching for surveillance every single time. This is the reality of being a case officer. It's not glamour. It's patience, precision, and the constant weight of knowing someone else's survival depends on how well you do your job. 3 years in the field have changed you in ways your family back home would never understand. You've been promoted to senior case officer, and the assignments are no longer routine. You're sent to what the agency calls denied areas, countries where the CIA has limited or no official presence, and where getting caught means there's no embassy to protect you. Your cover is deeper now. You might pose as a European businessman, a freelance journalist, or an NGO worker. You travel under alias documentation so convincing it would pass inspection at most border checkpoints in the world. In one operation, you're tasked with re-establishing contact with an asset, a scientist named Elena, inside a country whose counterintelligence service is among the most aggressive on Earth. She hasn't been contacted in 8 months. The previous officer assigned to her was pulled out after a surveillance scare. You fly into the country commercially. You check into a hotel. You spend 3 days running surveillance detection routes through markets, parks, and transit systems before you're confident you're clean. On the 4th night, you meet Elena at a pre-arranged location, a bench near a canal just after sunset. She's terrified. She tells you her department is under internal review. She thinks someone suspects her. You have minutes to make a decision. Do you pull her out, extract her from the country through an exfiltration plan that hasn't been tested? Or do you reassure her and keep the operation running because the intelligence she provides is critical to national security? There is no right answer. There's only your judgment, and at this rank, the agency trusts it. That's what makes a senior case officer, not the years of service. The ability to sit on that bench, look someone in the eye, and make the call. The cable arrives on a Tuesday. You're being assigned to run your own base. A CIA base is a smaller, often covert intelligence outpost operating in a particularly sensitive or dangerous location. It doesn't have the diplomatic infrastructure of a full station. Sometimes it's just you and a handful of officers working out of a nondescript building in a city most Americans couldn't find on a map. As chief of base, you are the senior agency officer in this location. You manage a small team, case officers, reports officers, maybe a communications specialist. You oversee every operation that runs out of your area. You approve meetings with assets, you evaluate threats, and you answer to the chief of station in the capital who expects results. The pressure is different now. When you were a case officer, you worried about your own operations. Now you worry about all of them. One of your officers is handling a source inside a local militia group. Another is trying to recruit a telecommunications engineer who has access to fiber optic networks used by a hostile intelligence service. Both operations carry risk. If either one goes wrong, it's your name on the cable back to Langley explaining what happened. You learn to manage people as carefully as you manage operations, because a burned-out officer makes mistakes, and mistakes in this environment cost more than careers. You hold this position for 2 years. Your base produces intelligence that directly influences policy decisions in Washington. And when the assignment ends, you're quietly told to prepare for something bigger. When you walk into the U.S. Embassy in Islamabad, almost nobody knows who you really are. You hold the title of a senior diplomatic official, but you are the chief of station, the highest-ranking CIA officer in the entire country. You report directly to the CIA director's office. The ambassador knows your real role. A handful of senior diplomats are aware. Everyone else sees the cover. As chief of station, or COS, you are responsible for all CIA operations, assets, and personnel in one of the most complex intelligence environments on the planet. You coordinate with foreign liaison services, sharing just enough to maintain the relationship, while protecting the sources and methods that give your country its edge. You brief the ambassador on intelligence developments that affect diplomatic strategy. You manage a station that might include dozens of officers running operations across the country. And you make decisions that carry weight far beyond your location. When your station develops intelligence suggesting an imminent threat, that information travels from your desk to the Oval Office within hours. The COS is often described as the most important intelligence job outside of Washington. And there's a reason. You're operating at the intelligence, or section of diplomacy, military strategy, and espionage, often in real time. One wrong call, one compromised asset, one failed operation, and the consequences ripple across governments. You don't sleep well in this job. But the intelligence your station produces shapes how your country understands and responds to threats that most citizens will never know existed. You're no longer in the field, and that's the hardest adjustment you've ever made. After years overseas, you've been brought back to Langley and promoted to division chief within the Directorate of Operations. You now oversee all clandestine operations across an entire geographic region. Every station, every base, every asset, every officer. Your portfolio might cover the Middle East, East Asia, or Europe. Hundreds of operations fall under your authority. You chair meetings where senior officers present operational proposals and you decide which ones move forward. A station in one country wants to recruit a cabinet-level official. Another is requesting authorization for a high-risk technical operation near a contested border. A third is reporting signs that one of their longest-running assets may have been compromised by a foreign counterintelligence service. Each of these requires your judgment, your signature, your accountability. You interface regularly with other parts of the intelligence community. The NSA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the FBI. You brief members of Congress on the intelligence oversight committees, choosing your words with extraordinary care. At this level, the work is no longer about the thrill of a clandestine meeting on a dark street. It's about strategy. It's about understanding how the dozens of operations under your command fit into the broader picture of American national security. And it's about protecting your people, the officers still out there, running assets in hostile cities, trusting that the institution behind them knows what it's doing. You are that institution now. There's a seat at the table in the White House Situation Room, and it has your title on it. You are the Deputy Director for Operations, the DDO, the individual responsible for running the CIA's entire clandestine service. Every covert operation conducted by the United States abroad ultimately falls under your authority. You oversee thousands of officers stationed across the globe. You manage the agency's most sensitive programs, operations so closely guarded that only a handful of people in the entire government are briefed on their existence. You sit in meetings with the director of the CIA, the Secretary of Defense, the National Security Advisor. When the president needs to understand what American intelligence assets are reporting from inside a foreign government, the chain often leads back to you. The DDO doesn't just manage operations. The DDO sets the direction of American espionage. You decide where resources are allocated. You determine which regions receive more officers. You approve the most sensitive recruitment operations, the ones where the potential asset is so highly placed that a failed pitch coup will trigger a diplomatic crisis. And you carry something else. Every officer in the field, every asset risking their life to pass information, every operation hanging on a razor's edge, they're all connected to decisions you've made. The stakes are no longer personal. They are national. And some mornings, sitting in your office on the 7th floor of the original headquarters building at Langley, you think about that first day at the farm. The trainee who wasn't sure they'd make it through the first week. You almost don't recognize that person anymore. You started as a name on an application. Someone who passed a polygraph and survived a program designed to break most people who enter it. You became an officer who sat across from frightened assets in foreign cities and promised them their trust wasn't misplaced. You led teams in places the public will never hear about. You made decisions that shaped how your country sees the world. And through all of it, you remained invisible. That's the paradox of this career. The better you are, the less the world knows you exist. Not every officer reaches the top. Most serve quietly and retire without recognition, carrying experiences they can never fully share. But every single one of them chose this. The secrecy, the sacrifice, the weight of a double life. Because they believed the mission mattered. And it does. If this deep dive into the world of covert CIA officers resonated with you, subscribe for more explorations into elite military and intelligence ranks. Next, we're uncovering the hidden hierarchy inside the world's most secretive special operations units. Stay tuned.